Everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today. I know you'll be glad that you did because we have a really wonderful guest speaker. He is, of course, a special friend to me and to financial social work. With me also today is Linda Benjamin, our relationship manager, and she will be helping with some of the Q&A and another activity we'll be doing. And Olga Patanin, who does all things tech. And we couldn't do any of this without them or certainly without you. So this is just a quick intro to Matthew Schwartz. Correct spelling, right, Matt?
I'm not seeing it on my screen yet.
Uh-oh. Wait a minute. You're not seeing my screen, anybody? Really?
I can see.
You can see. So maybe it's because I have my presentation up. Let me.
Probably.
Probably. Maybe. Window. Oh, there it is. Okay, and that is the spelling of my name. Thank you.
You're welcome. Not nice to misspell someone you care about his name. All right, he will tell you more about himself when I turn it over to him brief in a few minutes. We welcome you and hope this will be an opportunity for everyone at this training to improve your own financial future and add new tools to your client toolbox. That is why we're here. So Olga puts messages in the chat box if you need to. No, or you put them in the chat box or the Q&A box. Olga, chat box.
Question box.
Oh, good. I've had that wrong for years. Okay, sorry. In the question box.
Yeah.
We're very often asked for the slides. We do not share them. They are proprietary, but the recording will be up on our website and you will receive it via email if you registered and on Facebook page and YouTube channel. If you have questions, be sure to type them in the question box, and I think we'll have time at the end of the training to take some of those. There are no CEs or certificates of attendance, just a really terrific learning experience. So I'd like to start our monthly free webinar with our financial social work affirmation, because I think it really captures the essence of the work that I've dedicated so much of my life to. Just for today, I will love myself enough to face my fears, practice self-acceptance and embrace hope, silence my inner critic, speak my truth, and make peace with myself and with my past. Just for today, I will give myself permission to eliminate toxic people, beliefs, and behaviors from my life and to prepare for a better tomorrow by healing my relationship with my money and with myself today. So we all know this is a particularly difficult time of financial uncertainty. We see it in the supermarket, at the gas station, and with any other type of spending that we consider. So we're going to be looking at a different perspective today and thinking a little bit out of the box. And to get started today, I would really love if you would share your thoughts on what this picture makes you think of. It's a fun activity that I just started recently and has proven to kind of get us thinking about money, what we do with money. So each month we're using a different one. And Linda?
Yes, we have financial fitness. We have financial fitness. We have money workout. The struggle between money and self. Ooh, being healthy is expensive. Making money work for you, working out with your money, strength, cash is king. Money is heavy lifting. That's great. Money being held down, the weight of money.
Wow. Wow. I heard you kind of commenting or thinking out loud too, Matt. Isn't this fun, Matt?
This is great.
It is. And it's a lot like when we do our community meetings a couple of times a month. Different perspectives, different responses, different ideas. Just another way for us to engage and engage the attendees to be more interactive also. We know that no one chooses to have money problems, but unfortunately, we also know that most people do. And that's why I started financial social work over 25 years ago. I'm just going to briefly tell all or any of you here who are new to our monthly free webinars why we do what we do at financial social work, which is the intersection of social work, politics, the economy, gender, economic, and social justice, and all in equity. And with this being Social Work Month and so many other kinds of months that are being celebrated, Women's Month, this holds true across the board. So financial social work is a behavioral model because until and unless behavior changes, nothing changes. It's heavily psychosocial, exploring our financial thoughts, feelings, attitudes, beliefs, experiences, and values. And the reason for that is that's what drives financial behavior, which is how we earn, spend, save, share, and borrow. It's interactive, reflective, supportive, educational, engaging. The most important thing about the work that we do with clients in any area of financial health and wellness is to engage them, because it doesn't matter how great our program might be, if they're not engaged, they're not going to participate. So it's also holistic, multidisciplinary, hopeful, helpful, successful individually and in groups, and it is very heart-centered. We approach money and life from a perspective of healing, acceptance, courage, wellness, and honesty. At the heart of my work, the very core of it, is addressing the relationship each of us has with our money and with ourselves, so that we can recognize and take ownership of our financial health and future and experience self-discovery, self-care, and self-healing. We have graduates across the country and around the world. That's very exciting. And I do believe it's as a result of the fact that it is a behavioral model. And so it gives me so much pleasure to turn over this presentation to almost Dr. Matthew Schwartz.
Thank you, Rita. I really appreciate it. 2 more months of lots of writing, and then I'll get to be Dr. Matt. And I really appreciate everyone coming out today. Financial social work is wildly important, and what a wonderful time during Social Work Month to talk about the intersectionality of financial health and wellness and why it matters no matter your profession. So I really want to welcome everyone and thank you for attending. There's so many things you could be doing today, and yet you chose to come here and to engage and to learn, and I think that that is wonderful. So first off, why should you even listen to me? I always tell people, if you're going to present or ask them, why should I listen to you? Well, I'm a licensed clinical social worker, certified financial social worker. I'm a doctor of social work candidate at the University of Buffalo, graduating this May. And my specialty is really moving more towards understanding how information is disseminated and implemented in various areas, in government and agencies across the world, from community to community, and taking a really ecological look at how we use financial data, among other data. So, as Rita has said, what do financial social workers do? Well, financial social workers, we help people connect with their money. We change behaviors and emotions associated with finances. And that includes the stress, trauma, anxiety, depression, suicidality, impulsivity, avoidance. So we help our clients change their thoughts, feelings, attitudes, and beliefs. And so people might understand financial social work from what we refer to as the micro level, that one-on-one, that counseling or financial social work educator level. And yet financial social workers, we work across the three areas where social workers practice. And we're going to talk about that in just a minute. So you might be saying, you know what, Matt, I'm not a financial social worker. I'm not even a social worker. Maybe I am a banker. Maybe I am a business owner. Maybe I am a salesperson. Financial behavioral health still matters, and it should matter to you. And my goal today is to prove why. And hopefully, if you are a financial social worker attending this, you're going to have some tools to talk about why this is important with absolutely everyone that you need. So, you're not a meteorologist. My guess is you care about the weather, or at least I hope you do, especially given all of I live in Buffalo, New York, and I can tell you that our weather has been pretty wonky. And my guess is that your weather has been pretty wonky too. If you're in California, you might have just had a lot of snowfall. You're not an ecologist, and yet you care about clean water, or at least I hope you do. I'm on a group called Hydro Homies. We love our water bottles and water. Clean water is essential to life. You're not an urban planner, but I'm willing to bet dollars to donuts. So you really care about how your community is designed, how easy it is to access food and resources. And you're not a rocket scientist, but you certainly care about our achievements in space because you're here using technology that's happened because of satellites and communication and research. So what do all of these things have in common? Well, they impact you, your family and your loved ones, your community, and even your jobs and places of employment. And this is at a very basic level. They, of course, impact all different parts of your life because they may not impact you directly every single day, but as they impact your colleagues and your loved ones, the impact that they feel will be felt by you. As these areas impact your community, you'll probably feel it or you'll see it. If you're in Buffalo, you've probably noticed that we haven't had a lot of potholes filled in over the past few years. The price of bread has skyrocketed. Eggs, well, better take out a second mortgage if you want an omelet. And the places of employment are struggling to retain workers and to provide benefits that workers view as helpful and advantageous. So when we look at financial wellness and health and behavioral health, we're looking at an ecological perspective. We're looking at a network perspective. So if you want to go as far, you can say a butterfly flaps its wings and all of a sudden it impacts your paycheck. What happens in one part of our system affects all other areas of our financial ecological system. So financial behavioral health really is everyone's concern. So just like the health of your community, air, water, safety is a part of our social contract and should concern you. So too does the financial behavioral health of those around us. And this includes at every level. So we're talking individuals, we're talking agencies, we're talking nation and state. So let's take a quick look at the macro level of practice. How are financial policies and programs created at the government level, federal, state, and county? What behaviors shape these policies? This is part of our financial behavioral health. The behavior of those that we entrust through the voting process to create the framework that we all work, live, and exist in. If those of you are like me and are a policy wonk, you might have seen recently the union bosses and Bernie Sanders and quite a few other people at the Senate hearing talking about worker rights and organizing. All of that falls under behavioral health, financial behavioral health, including perspectives on policy and what rights should or shouldn't exist. And then at the macro level, we have to say, how do government financial policies impact the financial behavior of people? So for instance, stimulus checks, tax policy, inflation. You might have seen Senator Elizabeth Warren recently going after the Federal Reserve chief because it's going to impact over 2 million people when he starts adjusting rates again. We also can look at how do these financial behavior of people, because people make up organizations, people make up governments, people make up communities. How does this impact our neighbors? And why should we care? Well, it's really important. Let's say that SNAP, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, commonly known as food stamps, if you're in a state that has reduced access to them, well, that's going to reduce access to food to your neighbors and to their children. Well, if you're a school teacher, that's going to have an impact on the behavior that you see in your classroom. And what we all of a sudden start seeing is that even at the macro level, it doesn't just trickle down, it floods down to the micro level of how it impacts human behavior. So then we look at what we refer to as the mezzo level of practice, agency to agency. So community to community. How are agencies and public institutions behaving as financial stewards of community assets? Are they using the money wisely and equitably? And again, this is financial behavioral health. We want to know what went into someone's thought process, what we refer to in financial social work as their financial origin or their family money story, because how they learned how to handle money growing up and in school and in work is going to impact how they discharge their duties. And we want to know how are their behaviors impacting the other levels at the macro, meso, and micro level. So policymakers, other agencies and institutions, and people. And of course, at the meso level, we can have things happen that are wonderful, and we can have things happen that cause a whole lot of problems. So are people saving money because the library is now offering ebooks? Or are they accessing food pantries more easily because of agency practice that has reduced the financial barriers to accessing food? Contrapositively, on the other side, are libraries shutting down and now more people are missing out? Or is food more scarce because of inflation and food pantries can't offer what they need to assist the citizens of their community? All of this matters. And at the micro level, the human to human interaction, how are we, our loved ones, our colleagues, saving, spending, borrowing, sharing, investing, and using finances? We don't operate or live in a vacuum. We operate and live in the real world. The war in Ukraine impacts gas prices at home. We are interconnected. And so we have to ask ourselves, how is financial behavioral health impacting us as individuals, our coworkers, and our friends? Are we being asked to share our money because others don't have enough, or using theirs in a way that's harmful to themselves? Right now, if we look at groups of working class folks, they have microeconomies where they're sharing money back and forth as different bills come up. We look at GoFundMe as being one of the largest funders of healthcare in the United States, not insurance companies. And that's wild. So I'd like to do a quick poll here, and I'd like to know, how concerned are you about your own financial well-being right now? And I'm going to share that poll. So if you'll take a minute. Okay, we still have some people voting, but 70% voted. Let's see if we can get a couple more, because I really am curious. 74% have voted. 76. Let's see if we can get it up to 80 or 90. All right, 77. Oh, we're getting closer. Okay, 78. All right, 2 more percentage points. Let's see if we can do it. At 79%. All right. Well, you know, it's sort of like an auction, right? You want the most amount of data. 80%. Okay, I'm going to close the poll, and I'm going to share the results with everyone. So can everyone see the poll results? I want to make sure that
Yes.
everyone can see the poll results. Wonderful. So 36% of the people in this room right now are very concerned. 39% are somewhat concerned. 16% are neutral. 4% are unconcerned, and 4% are cool as a cucumber. That's pretty interesting. That tells me that there's a larger amount of folks who are concerned or who don't have a positive view of their finances right now in this moment. So, and everyone can see my screen again, right? All right,
Yes.
excellent.
Yes.
Good. Sorry, I'm a Zoom pro. I'm still learning GoToWebinar. So I'd like to take a look at some numbers. And so before I share numbers and before we talk about numbers, I want to share where the data comes from, because you shouldn't just trust me, right? And I promise I did not pull these numbers out of thin air. So these numbers, right, you know, it'd be so much easier to do that. So these numbers come from federal government in the United States, federal government agencies. And so I just want to caution that these numbers are always subject to change. We're always a couple of years, a year to a couple of years behind when it comes to reporting. So for instance, we're looking at the US Bureau of Labor Statistics. We're looking at the Federal Reserve's report on US household finances, and some of them come out in May for the year prior. So these are primarily the most recent numbers we have. And what I'd like people to keep in mind is that as of the 2020 census, we had 258.3 million adults in the US. 20% of that is 51,660,000. 30% of that is 77.4 million. And the average is 64.5 million. We look at 25% of the population. And this is going to be an important number. So we also want to understand that 64.5 million people equates to about 1.2 million people per state in the United States. So while we might be talking about what sounds like small numbers to us, if I say 20% are struggling, understand that that's 51.6 million people. That's a huge number when we look at social services. So let's take a look here. So we're going to look at the largest occupations in the US today. And let's see why financial behavioral health can impact these folks, their colleagues, and their loved ones. So when we look at the largest occupations, and this is the most recent data that I have from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the largest occupation is retail salespersons. Folks who work in sales, they work in stores, they work in shops, think about Target. The second largest is personal care aides. The third, working alongside retail, is cashiers. Then we find that we have food and counter workers at restaurants and fast food joints, registered nurses and general operations managers, who among this group are pretty much the higher paid on the wage scale than anyone else in these occupations, though not always. Then we have customer service representatives, those who help us when we call up an insurance number or call a hotline for some help. Laborers and freight, stock and material movers, and general hand helpers. So we look at truck drivers, we look at the people who load the trucks, we look at people who load and unload materials. Then we look at just, in general, office clerks, folks who make the business world run. And then, of course, stockers and order fillers, people who help line our shelves with the food and supplies that we need. So what does this mean for retail salespeople, cashiers, fast food and counter workers, and CSRs as their colleagues? Well, we know from statistics, again, this is from the Federal Reserve now, that at least this is the last report, that 32% said that they could not come up with an emergency amount of $400 in cash. So that's about 1 million plus people per state. Well, we also know that over the past year, 20% of adults had a major unexpected medical expense. Okay, well, what does that mean when retail and salespeople who are in the lower wage spectrum, lower part of it, can't come up with their bills, have a medical expense, and then we add in the statistic that 24% of households are having difficulty paying their monthly household expenses? Well, we have a problem here, because these are the people that we learned during the pandemic make our economy run. These are the essential employees. And yet, when we look at the statistics, what we find out is that they are in financial peril, living paycheck to paycheck. This isn't good for them as human beings. It's also not good for their businesses, because businesses, of course, always, what's the one cost that they want to cut? It's labor. It's the most expensive cost of running a business. And yet, we need people. And so this means for them as individuals that they're going to be struggling. For their colleagues, we also know that it means that everyone that they're working with, or the vast majority, has more financial stress, that is increasing anxiety, depression. It also reduces their ability to work productively when you think about how many go to work hungry. It also means that their children might be out of school more often, especially if they have transportation issues or live in rural areas. It also means that there's generally a high turnover rate. These jobs burn people out because they're not paying enough. And so for managers, this is also a huge deal, because it costs a lot of money to train someone. There is no such thing as unskilled labor. That is a lie. Every single kind of labor requires some form of skill. I remember when I learned how to push a broom on a construction site, and I did it wrong for 2 weeks as they showed me how to do it correctly and efficiently. So this lets us know, hey, we have to do better for some of the largest occupations here in the United States. And that means from a financial behavioral health perspective, we have to look at the macro policy level, the agency level and business level, and the individual level. So what does this mean for home health and personal care aides, registered nurses, other helpers, and colleagues? Well, as the baby boomer generation gets older, they need more assistance. We also know that frontline workers who work in residential homes have capped, because of federal regulations, their salary at less than $15 an hour. Well, when McDonald's is paying $15 an hour or more for work that is less intense than helping people get dressed and showered and lifting them out of bed, we start to have problems. And we're seeing it in shortages across the country in home health, personal care aides, nurses, and other professions, including mental health and even medicine. So we have to say, wow, what is the financial behavioral health at the agency practice? Are they advocating for their employees? Are they going to Washington? Are they saying, hey, we have a real issue here? And again, people make up communities, people make up organizations, people make up government. So we have to look at what is the network of financial decision making and how are we arriving at that? Because again, it may not impact you directly. And yet, if your direct report has to stay home because they're taking care of a relative, eventually they may lose their job. And guess what? That happened to me. My mother developed dementia, and all of a sudden my world changed. Oh boy, I had to become a worker. I had to start working for myself, and I'm thankful that I have the license and education that lets me do that. But it certainly turned our world upside down. Now, what if you are a worker who can't do that or doesn't have that opportunity? You're out of a job, you have a sick family member to take care of. The policies that we allow to be enacted or that we don't allow to be enacted have ramifications that ripple across our systems. And it is so incredibly important to keep that in mind. My guess is that if any of us were sick here, we would certainly want a registered nurse at our bedside in the hospital. We'd want to be able to receive physical therapy at home. We'd like to have other helpers and colleagues assist us without having to start a GoFundMe to cover our medical bills. And so we start looking at financial behavioral health. We say, wait a minute, behavioral health is healthcare and financial behavioral health is healthcare, because it all goes in together. And in fact, if you've ever been to the emergency room, you know that one of the first documents you sign is the promise to pay the bill. That's one of the first documents they have you sign. It's a pretty big deal. So general operations managers and colleagues, we like to think of general operations managers and managers in general as being at the mid to higher level of the wage scale. Absolutely, and the data bears that out. And yet, if you are managing healthcare workers, cashiers, retail salespeople, delivery people, and you are now having high rates of absenteeism or people falling asleep on the job because their sleep is affected, because of their financial health, all of a sudden you're going to find out that financial behavioral health impacts you too. Because it's going to impact your work, it's going to impact your day-to-day work, it's going to increase your stress. And that stress, of course, is never left at the office, it comes home. So this all of a sudden does become the concern of middle management and upper management. And it's not the classic argument of workers need to be paid more or workers need to be paid less. It's recognizing that there's an interconnectedness that we can statistically show between human behavior, human emotions, human overall well-being and wellness and finances. And so if your employees don't have this extra stress, don't have the anxiety, depression, suicidality that comes along with having lower or low finances or living paycheck to paycheck, well, you're going to have less turnover. You're going to find that your bottom line increases. You're going to have to do less trainings because you're going to have higher retention. And hopefully it's going to reduce the stress of management and leadership. So financial behavioral health really does impact all areas. You don't have to be a banker or somebody in financial trouble to understand that, hey, this is relevant to you too. So let's look at retail salespeople and colleagues. So I don't know about you, but I like being able to go to the store and get food on the shelves. Super important. I also really like being able to go to the deli and get a sandwich. I'm Jewish, so you know what? Having some roast beef on rye is quite a nice treat. And yet, what we find is that retail salespeople and colleagues are going to work sick. Well, why? Because their financial behavioral health is helping them make that decision. They look at their bills, they have more month than they have money, and then all of a sudden, we're starting to spread things. And in a time and age where spreading sickness is very concerning and certainly can impact the well-being, of course, of their colleagues and their customers. And again, much like we've seen in other areas, what happens is that we then find that we have reduced profits, we have more absenteeism, we have more individual behavior, increased stress. And so this is impacting another large segment of the overall population. And then when we look at laborers, freight, stock movers, and colleagues, we know from our research that financial stress is one of the most common forms of stress. Chronic financial stress syndrome is real. We didn't actually invent it. Rita has a model for it. It's being studied by the National Institute of Health and the National Institute of Behavioral Health. And so when we look at the impact, what happens when your truck drivers are working more shifts than they should? Or maybe they're only working trucking for one part, but then they have to take on other odd jobs or side hustles. Well, this means that our policies are out of alignment and it creates problems on the road. We look at accidents. We look at the financial behavioral health of even the infrastructure, going back to that macro level. Last year, there were over 1,000 train derailments. Right now, recently in recent months, we've had at least 3, all with devastating impacts to the environment. Well, all of a sudden, our transportation and our infrastructure get connected to financial behavioral health because we're looking at how are people choosing to spend money and how is it impacting their behavioral health in their lives. And even if it's not impacting you directly, it's certainly impacting the environment around you. It's also impacting your ability to get to work or from work. And so we start seeing that when we talk about financial behavioral health, what we're really talking about is an interconnectedness that recognizes that money really does make the world go round. And it impacts our health, our wellness, our mental health, our overall well-being, and that stretches to all areas of practice, micro, mezzo, and macro, and all areas of the economy. So I'd like to do another poll. Now that we have seen The financial behavioral health can impact tons of industries. I'd like to know how concerned you are about your colleagues, your neighbors, your community's financial well-being right now. I'm going to share that poll. We're at 62%. I'd love to get to 80% again, so we have numbers to compare against one another. 68%. 72. Come on, we can do it. Let's get to 80. 75. 5 more percentage. 77. 58. 2 more percentage points, folks. 78. Give it another couple of seconds. All right. So we can see that 51% are now very concerned, 31% are concerned, 13% are neutral, and only 4% are unconcerned. So 82%, having seen this presentation, are now concerned about our colleagues, our neighbors, our communities. Well, we should be. We're in some pretty scary economic times right now. Come on, where'd my screen go? There we go. Okay. Financial behaviors are part of nearly every aspect of our day-to-day lives. And it is time that we start looking holistically at the behavioral health of the governments, agencies, institutions, occupations, and people we interact with, as well as ourselves, in order to create healthy financial change. We have to begin understanding the why of how we work together and how we make financial decisions and financial policy. And now I will happily take questions and have a conversation.
Well, not exactly, Matt. First,
Nope. First,
we will take questions in a few minutes, but I get to finish up.
Matt. That's right. Yes, I'm going to share my screen back with you. That's correct. Okay, hold on. Change presenter. I'm getting to you. Hold on. Here,
okay.
You take it back. There you go. Okay.
Matt, that was just awesome. That was so wonderful, even if I am a little prejudiced. Okay, so before we do the Q&A, we will have a few final thoughts that I have decided sometime last year that anytime I get to share with an audience, that these are important enough to repeat. So we talked about earlier that no one chooses to have money problems, but most people do. But consider this. No one needs or can know everything about money, but everyone needs to know certain things about money. So depending on what occupation or what client population you might work with, there will be different pieces that different clients should and do need to know, as well as those of us on this training. Very important. So I talked earlier about the core of my work being about the relationship we each have with money and with self. And those relationships are fluid and most of them need attention or healed. And healing your relationship with yourself takes time, honesty, less self-criticism, and more self-love. And healing your relationship with your money begins with your thoughts, feelings, attitudes, values, and experiences with money. When we talk about money, what are we really talking about? We're talking about survival. We're talking about safety and security. but we're also talking about power, because those who have the power are those who have the money. And our work is about empowering clients and helping them understand that there is hope and there is help and things can get better. So we encourage everyone to never stop working to make peace and make friends with your money. If you want to stop generation after generation of financial illiteracy that has been happening in this country, we need to raise more financially literate children. And unfortunately, the strong relationship between finances and suicide needs to be addressed, because debt shouldn't and doesn't have to be a death sentence. We should always encourage and choose life. So as we finish up here, I just want to tell you that next month's webinar is on the intersection of race-based trauma and financial literacy. Dr. Hardy did part 1 back in August, and it was definitely one of our most popular ever webinars. So you might want to join us then, and you can watch that recording from last August on our website. And then addressing chronic poverty, the high cost of being poor. That's in May. I wanted to tell you that last year we introduced a financial health and wellness professional community. It's for professionals committed to helping clients overcome money challenges and build wealth. This community provides all of us with the ability to interact, learn, network, connect, expand client resources, and support each other across diverse client populations. We do have a partner program. If you refer us to a colleague or a friend, that person gets a 10% discount on our products, and you receive a 10% commission. We have lots of amazing essays from our graduates on our website. Those are free. And if you aren't registered, Olga, maybe you could put this link into the Q&A, the question box. This is our wonderful twice weekly curated health and wellness newsletter that I spend lots of time finding really relevant articles to share with our communities, and this is free. And we currently are offering a pay what you can option. We wanted to make our certification, which our students have 6 months to complete, and it includes all the materials and final exam. And we are, the price has been $695 for a couple of years now, but we know how difficult the economy is right now. So we have added this option to pay what you can, $395, $495, $595. The full price includes a 1-year free membership into our professional community, and certification includes 20 CEUs. And with that, we are open for discussion and Q&A. Linda, do we have questions?
We do have questions. First, I would like to thank Matt for an absolutely eye-opening conversational presentation. And I'd also like to share a comment that a participant made before I go to questions. This participant says, my husband is a CPA. I'm a graduating MSW student. We are trying to bridge the gap in our community, but we are highly concerned. Once I graduate, I will be seeking financial social work certification. Thank you, Rita and Matt. I just wanted to pass that on before.
Thank you. Thank you.
I thought that there was, that was very nice. First question. What can we do to bring this conversation more into the public?
I think that's an
you've
excellent
raised-
question.
Yes.
So what I would say is there's so many opportunities, and you can take either a wideband or a narrowband approach. So I think that sharing with colleagues that it's okay to talk about money, reducing the stigma around finances. There's a huge stigma about talking about money. There's also a stigma against even asking for help or appearing to need help. And so working to reduce that by normalizing the discussion, I think, is part one. Part two is becoming aware. No one can know everything about finance. No one. Even people who are masters in tax law can't know everything about the tax system. It's over 3,000 pages. So, for instance, if we look at banking, we know that 81% of the population is what's considered fully banked. So they have a bank account and banking relationship that meets their financial needs. 13% are underbanked, so they don't have a relationship that meets their needs, and 6% don't have a bank account at all. And this means that they're taking a part in various economies. So under the table, cash only, cash cards, different apps. And I think that as we sit with our friends and we observe their behavior, I think it gives us a wonderful opportunity to say, hey, have you thought about opening a bank account? Have you thought about attending a webinar? Is there some way that I can help? And just being able to open those conversations, or even just share some, hey, I signed up for this newsletter that Rita has, and look at this fact. Isn't this concerning? What could we do for our employees? Or maybe there's something we could do with our neighborhood block club. Could we all get together and watch a webinar together and see how it's impacting us? So there's a lot of ways of bringing this out into the open, as long as we create a safe, non-judgmental environment to do so.
Perfect. Really
Thank you.
perfect, Matt.
Next question. I loved the presentation and agree about the importance of financial literacy. Can our speaker talk about how to best integrate financial psychology and financial social work principles into financial literacy efforts, especially on the macro and micro levels? Any models that you've seen?
So I would say that Rita's model about finance, so what we've learned with the research is that financial literacy isn't enough. And if you ever want me to share I have a Zotero folder with just tons of research, and I'm always happy to share it with folks if you want the link. What we've learned from research done is that financial literacy isn't enough. It has to be combined with behavioral health to have long-term changes, which is why I love financial social work, because it gives us that model. And so we're looking at the micro level. I think it's interacting with the model put out by the Center for Financial Social Work of human behavioral change, recognizing that there's the transformational model and transformative models of human behavioral change, and that each of those models have different steps for engaging people. So whether they're pre-contemplative and they don't think that they have a problem, or they're contemplative, maybe they have a problem, there's different calls for action. And this is very well documented and stuff that I would happily, if you want to send me an email, we'll send you an email on, we can have a conversation on. When we look at the macro level, at right now, unfortunately, Washington is, and there's some fascinating data on it, it is as divided as it ever has been. People are literally not physically crossing the aisle. And so really, it's going to be a lot of advocacy, not only in our local governments and our state governments, also at some point it's going to be a couple of bus trips down to Washington, knocking on doors the old-fashioned way, maybe having a lobbying day on Capitol Hill. Because what's happening is that people in power aren't realizing that their financial story, their understanding of finances, their financial behavior leaks into the work that they do. And so for us to get financial literacy efforts on the macro level, not only for the behavioral changes, also for our educational changes, we have to educate children, we have to educate youth, we have to educate adults and older adults who have never had this education. It's going to take the combined effort of individuals, agencies, government policy, and programming.
Well, I can't, after 26 years, I have way more to say than I could say to answer this question. So I'll take a simpler route and tell you the one thing you should not do based on my experience. Do not expect to engage clients with budgeting. No one likes the B word. No one understands its relevance, what an important tool it is. That's not where you begin. We have to engage the client. It is a behavioral model. We can help clients make budgets. It's better, of course, if they create their own, but they have what's in it for me? All marketing, all advertising. So much of the world is based upon what's in it for me. And if a client doesn't understand the importance of a budget, it's not going to be a tool that he or she uses. So, whatever you do, there are so many wonderful ways to engage clients and work up to including what we call a personal spending and savings plan, but work up to it to make it engaging, the whole process.
Absolutely.
And Matt, you took
Absolutely.
away my favorite line, which I loved when you said it. Most of all, we need to create a safe, non-judgmental space for clients to learn how to talk about money and to feel safe doing that. Because even though it's 2023, I have a very difficult time with this fact. Having started all of this in 1997, we still don't talk about money. It's still such a taboo topic.
And to Rita's point about budgets, one of the things that I'm in private practice now. I worked at a community behavioral healthcare clinic in Buffalo. And one of the things that we know is that if you tell someone, don't do the thing, what do they want to do? They want to do the thing. So if you tell someone, here's your budget, don't stray from your budget, the first in their gut reaction is going to be to stray from that budget. So we have engaged our patients, not only in the community practice, but in my private practice. We start by talking to them about their problems and what they're facing and their emotions. We let them know that really it is a safe place with no judgment. And then we create this beginning of our version of the PSSP. We do a statement of cash flows. We're not making a budget. We're taking a snapshot picture of where you are. And we let them know in doing this process, because we're non-judgmental throughout, hey, here's what your spending is looking like. Is this something that you want to change? Are you okay with this? I had one person give up drugs because I showed them how much they were spending in drugs a week, a month, and a year. And they were like, wow, I'm literally lighting that on fire. And so I think that we can engage people using the models that we have. And I think it's about getting the word out that these models exist.
Okay. If we have time for another question. Someone has asked, how do you approach financial social work when people are in a crisis? What is the best approach?
That is an excellent question. And I would say that almost all of our patients, when they're coming or being referred to financial social work, are in some form of crisis, whether it is possibly being evicted or it's not having money to pay for medication or medical bills. And I would say the first step is the same step that we take in any crisis, which is non-judgmental, positive, unconditional positive regard for the person, listening, actively listening to what they're telling us, not trying to problem solve for them, but reflecting what their true and honest options are while providing that emotional and behavioral support. We can't snap our fingers. I wish I had a financial social work magic wand. It doesn't exist yet. Maybe one day. And so when we've had people come into our office who are saying, I'm facing eviction, I owe $20,000, I'm now disabled, I can't pay it back, I'm going to be homeless. Well, I can't say, hey, I'm going to help make that okay. What I can do is provide emotional support, doing some deep breathing, some mindfulness. And mindfulness is also a core part of a financial social work approach. We have to become mindful of how we use money. And then when we've at least brought down the urgency, even though it's an emergency, We can start making referrals to community organizations, which is why it's so important that every financial social worker and every person knows what are some of the resources in the community. So for instance, in Buffalo, we have 211, which is the 911 for social services. We have Parachute, which is a not-for-profit New York State banking license credit counseling center. We have a lot of social services. And so through networking, through professional networking, through our financial social work professional network, we're able to connect people in crisis to have their immediate needs. We think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs met. And then we can also talk to them at a very real level and say, hey, you didn't get here overnight. Most likely. It's very rare that people either get into massive debt overnight or make a lot of money overnight, unless it's the lotto or it's gambling. Well, okay. So it didn't happen overnight. So it's going to take us some time to fix. And it can be fixed. And so we instill hope, and we instill hope with honesty. So we're not going to say, hey, we're going to make you a millionaire. We're going to say, hey, we're going to figure this out.
Awesome.
Perfect. Perfect.
I have one more question if we have time. I think we do.
We do. Yep.
Okay. What can I do as a non-social worker to improve the financial behavioral health of my community?
I think that's an excellent question. And what I would say is you don't have to be a social worker to be concerned about this. I'm not a meteorologist, but I've certainly, it's what I can do to help the weather and environment around me. And, is it something that, I'm also not an ecologist, but I can pick up bottles and recycle them. And so too, we can start engaging, if you're not a social worker, engaging with banks, finding out what education they're providing, what services they're providing, how are they helping the community. When new businesses come in that prey upon those who are financially vulnerable, such as payday loans and unfortunately most check cashing businesses, can you start working with your local councils to start enacting policies that protect people? There's a lot that can be done when we look at the ecological network of how finances impact us.
Perfect. One more question. You've sparked so many questions.
Add one thing. I just need to add one thing, if I can remember now before I lose the thought, that we have a lot of free materials on the Financial Social Work website, ebooks, recorded webinars like this one, lot of free resources. But you should also know that we have as many non-social workers as social workers who take the certification and then have those skills and tools. And our graduates are able to use all of the original materials with their clients. So I just wanted to add that. Go ahead, Linda. One last question.
Of course. Do you believe we should add some questions about the client's financial state on the evaluation that goes behind the immediate crisis?
Yes, and I can't emphasize that strongly enough. Financial distress, when we look at suicidality, we look at personality disorders, we look at behavioral decision-making disorders, we look at impulsivity, we look at bipolar, there's almost always a financial component. And also, if we approach the question with unconditional positive regard and with no judgment, our clients will tell us the answer. And so if we include it as part of the evaluation, we can sometimes get to, hey, why are you in crisis? A lot quicker than I'm experiencing panic attacks and anxiety. Because, okay, maybe they're experiencing panic attacks and anxiety, but is it financially based? Or maybe they're experiencing suicidality. Is it because they're facing eviction? So I would say that financial assessment should always be a part of a client's initial intake and evaluation, whether it's crisis or otherwise. And the Center for Financial Social Work, I don't know if it's an individual PDF, but I know that it's in the training manuals, has a wonderful self-assessment on like, do I have financial problems, that I would recommend anyone use with their clients as they're coming in to see if moving towards a financial perspective is appropriate with that client.
I think that another piece of that is, if you really stop and think about the actual presenting problem, so many do have a financial component. And we didn't learn that in school. And so it's taken, certainly it's been an uphill climb for me to get this to where we can do and have this conversation today, but also by having it on an intake. And yes, we do in this certification, we have specific intake questions to help you get started, but you can come up with your own for sure. And it does allow you an avenue to open the conversation about finances, because again, 2023, we don't talk about money. So you aren't just, coming out of the air with some question about finances, but when it's on the intake, you have a point of reference to open that conversation.
Excellent questions. Thank you so much, everyone, for your time and attention and curiosity today. Truly appreciate it.
Matt, thank you so much. I know everyone is saying thank you, thank you, thank you. It was a lot of great information, and I had a lot of fun. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. I hope we'll see you back here next month. So have a beautiful rest of the day. Bye now.